Our focus standard for this lesson comes from Grade 8 Functions, Standard B. Use functions to model relationships between quantities. Our topic for this lesson comes from Systems of Equations, Translating Between Math and English Sentences. Our essential question for this lesson is, what are some key terms that we use when translating between math and English sentences? Please take a few moments, pausing the video if you need to copy the standard, the topic, and essential question into your header, along with today's date, set the question column, and the note column, and resume the video when you're ready to begin.
We're going to start today with some vocabulary that I believe is probably review on variables, expressions, and equations. So take a moment to think in your head how you might define these words. And they're going to be important for helping us to answer our essential question today. So a variable or variables is a letter representing an unknown value. So anytime we're not sure, it's kind of like a placeholder. It holds the place of a value we don't know, but that we need to find out. An expression contains one or more numbers and or variables, and each part of the expression is separated by an addition or subtraction sign, and that is called a term. So there's another vocabulary word from a while back. So that is an expression. When you add an equal sign, it turns into a math sentence and therefore an equation. So an equation is a mathematical sentence in which two expressions appear on either side of an equal sign and states that the two expressions are equivalent. So we're going to need to use that today, variables, expressions, and equations, to be able to translate math sentences into word sentences and vice versa. So we're going to start off with a couple of examples here, where you are translating from a math sentence into an English sentence, meaning write it out in words what it means. So we're starting off with what is referred to as a let statement, in which we're just simply stating what variables we're using and what we want them to represent. So I have let B equal boys and G equal girls. Mr. O'Neill gives you the following math sentence to describe his class. He says B plus G equals 23. So your first task here in this lesson is to translate that math sentence, this equation, B plus G equals 23. If he told you that, what would that tell you about his class? And you can write that down here. We do want it to be grammatically correct. So we know that the B stands for boys, so the number of boys plus the number of girls is 23. What might be helpful is there was a math lesson a while back in which you had all the different operations and words that we could use to English words that we could use to represent those symbols and equations and operations, and one of them is the word is, oftentimes stands for an equal sign. So the number of boys plus the number of girls is 23. Now there's a few other ways you could have said that or written that. Maybe said the number of boys and the number of girls is 23. Maybe you added in that it was Mr. O'Neill's class, but this would be the most basic way to translate this equation. And again, we want it to be grammatically correct, but we don't want it to give us too much information. So let's try another one. We're going to add on to that he also gives you the equation that B equals G minus 3. And I want to know, based on this equation, are there more boys or girls in his class? So think about this equation here. The B still stands for boys, the G still stands for girls, so if B equals G minus 3, Using this equation, can we tell if there are more boys or more girls in his class? So it's helpful to start out by translating that into an English sentence. We might come up with something that states that the number of boys is 3 less than the number of girls. The number of boys is 3 less than the number of girls. And therefore, that would mean if the number of boys is 3 less than the number of girls, that there are more girls in Mr. O'Neill's class. Alright, let's look at another example doing the same thing where I will give you an equation and you will need to translate it into an English sentence. So we're going to let P equal the number of passengers. This is our let statement here. And so TriMet reports that the following equation represents the total number of people on a max during rush hour. 3P plus 8 equals 176. So I'm going to translate that into a grammatically correct sentence, using as few words as possible, but also being to the point and representing each term. So you need to address each term. We know that P equals the number of passengers, so let's take a look. 3 times the number of passengers in each train car, so if you think about the max as different cars attached, and in this case there are 3 of them, so 3 times the number of passengers in each train car, or max car, plus 8 more people, right? So it's saying there's 8 more than that, and that may be people who work for TriMet, the operator, people who are checking tickets, is 176. So I would guess that 176 is their capacity based on this equation, and that's taking into account the 8 employees and then having 3 different passenger cars. So this is one translation of the equation 3P plus 8 equals 176. If you had something else, let's definitely bring that up to talk about in class. There may have been other ways that you could have translated that. For the following 2 examples, we're going to go the other way, where I'm going to give you a little bit of a story problem and I want you to write an equation for it. Alright, so for this one here, Turner rode his bike M number of miles. If Carolyn rode 10 less than twice the number of miles that Turner rode, write an equation that represents how many miles Carolyn rode. So I've helped you out by providing a let statement going forward after this set of videos. Anytime you are writing an equation from a story problem like this, you definitely need to include a let statement. So we're going to let M equal the number of miles. Capital C is going to represent the number of miles Carolyn rode. So see if you can put together an equation that would represent this. And again, we want it to tell us how many miles Carolyn rode. Because we're trying to solve for how many miles Carolyn rode, I'm going to start the equation off with C equals, because I've already defined that C equals the number of miles that Carolyn rode. And I know that it is 10 less than twice the number of miles that Turner rode. So I'm going to take care of this part here, this twice the number of miles that Turner rode. And so I'm going to multiply that by 2m miles. I'm going to take the number of miles times 2. Twice the number of miles that Turner rode. And then what do we need to do next? What's going to be the last term? You said subtract 10. I would agree with that. So this would be an equation, C equals 2m minus 10. That would tell us how many miles Turner rode. It might be a little bit more best in terms of technicalities to write that this equals the number of miles that Turner rode. So we could be even more specific than that, because we're comparing the number of miles that Carolyn rode to the number of miles that Turner rode. So twice the number of miles that Turner rode minus 10 will tell us how many miles Carolyn rode. Alright, here's our last one. Each fruit basket comes with apples, pears, and bananas. Wendy's orders 4 fruit baskets and gets a total of 84 pieces of fruit. write an equation that represents Wendy's order. So again, I provide you a let statement. Going forward in class and in other future lessons, you will need to write your own let statement. But we're dealing with apples, pears, and bananas, so we're going to have a variable for each of those. And so we know that she ordered 4 baskets. Each basket is like a group, so I'm probably going to want to use parentheses here. So I used 4 and then a set of parentheses to represent my basket, and in each basket are apples, pears, and bananas, so I've added those together for the total pieces of fruit in each basket. And I have 4 outside the parentheses to represent that I have ordered 4 of them, or that Wendy has, and I've used an equal sign to say that that is equal to 84, because she got a total of 84 pieces of fruit in the 4 baskets that she ordered. So hopefully you feel pretty comfortable with this, going back and forth between English sentences and math sentences. Please take a moment to make sure that your notes are complete, that you've written any questions that you might have, as well as any study guide questions to start to get a head start on that for preparing to review your notes for future use.